here. Everybody can see this okay? Everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you and see
Perfect.
it.
All right. So yeah, thanks again for reaching out. The Fraud Center is always happy to get out and do as much fraud prevention awareness messaging as possible. We do hundreds of these types of presentations a year, and it's really about spreading the word. So the slogan on the main page here: fraud, recognize, reject, report. This is what we're going to be talking about today: recognizing that fraudsters are using every means at their disposal to target you: the telephone, internet, email, social media, text messaging. Rejecting is about slowing down, doing your due diligence, and taking time, right? So we're going to get into that. And the last piece, reporting. If people aren't reporting, we don't know what's happening. So the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is located in North Bay, Ontario, about 4 hours north of Toronto for people not familiar with Ontario. It's jointly run by the RCMP, the Ontario Provincial Police, and the Competition Bureau of Canada. Our primary goal is to reduce fraud through education and prevention awareness messaging, through op support or operational support, support to investigations, and through disruption. Um, we're essentially Canada's central repository for fraud. We do not invest. We are police run, but we do not investigate. It's the key message here. So the information we use is collect is used to provide fraud awareness messaging, and again used to support investigations. And if I can build on that too a little bit, so the centralized, so again, just some of our key functions here: the centralized reporting and intake, right? So if you're a victim of fraud, it's key, and we'll get into this later, is to report to your local police. At the same time, we want to know about it. In many cases, local police will refer fraud files to us. With fraud today, it's really global in scope. So if I use Canada as an example, and we have an occurrence in British Columbia of a CRA extortion scam, and an occurrence in Halifax of a CRA extortion scam involving the same perpetrator, same name, same phone numbers, same payment mechanisms, you potentially have two different police services investigating the same matter. So the idea behind central sourcing the data here is to deconflict, to connect the dots between the different occurrences across Canada and the different police services. So that, with centralization, you get a better view of what's really happening. Operational support. So I mentioned we use the information we collect to support investigations and operations and develop intelligence. So that's another good reason to report as well. The information you have, whether you've lost money or not, the information you have can be a key piece to a puzzle. A phone number, a Bitcoin address, a bank account. So it's all information that helps connect the dots. Prevention awareness, I touched on as well. It's really the key driver to reducing fraud in Canada is prevention awareness. It's about spreading the messaging, talking to other people. The UK's got a great initiative called hashtag Tell2. The idea being, if everybody that experienced a fraud told two people, and those two people told two more, and so on, an unbroken chain of 25 tell-toers, you could educate the whole Canadian population. So it really is a key piece. And then the last piece here, disruption. Here we're referring to disrupting frauds outside of investigations. So what can we do? So if we have phone numbers that aren't being investigated, aren't part of investigations, can the telephone companies block or shut down these phone numbers? Email addresses, can they be blocked or shut down? Bank accounts, websites, and so on, right? So we use the information we collect to disrupt the fraud and reduce the fraud as much as possible. And that's not always done through investigation. In some cases, it's done by working with private sector partners to leverage their terms of service so that they can block that service, right? So typically, private sector partners or service providers maintain the right to block the service if it's being used for a criminal purpose. So at the Fraud Center, we collect information through our toll-free number and our online fraud reporting system. We currently collect information on over 30 different frauds and scams. I'm not going to get into all of them today. We'll touch on some of the hot ones. But essentially, we know that fraudsters are able to profile new scams to target specific occupation, age groups, religion, you name it. They have scams for just about everybody out there. Basically, I like to say anybody with a phone today can be targeted. Most people have cell phones, so you can receive a call, you can receive a text, you can receive an email, and so on. To give you a sense of reporting at the Anti-Fraud Center, and these are fresh off the press, we're still working on our year-end of stats, but in 2020, we had 470,000 calls hit our toll-free number, 888-495-8501, during business hours. So it was over 600,000 for the year in a 24-hour period, if we look at a 24-hour period, but we're open 9 to 5 typically. So 470,000 calls hit our line. We had 131,000 online fraud reports that were submitted through our online fraud reporting system. This is up from 68,000 online fraud reports last year. So we continue to see fraud go up. Total reported losses to that fraud center is $160 million in 2020 so far. So as I said, we're still working on our year-end stats. We'll probably see that number go up. Canadian losses alone accounted for 104 million of that 160. So we do get reporting from victims around the world and where there's a Canadian connection. So a good example would be an immigration job scam where fraudsters have posted ads in foreign countries, offering jobs in Canada, immigrate to Canada, and essentially they're fake job offers, and people have to pay to get the job or pay to get their visas and get all their immigration paperwork, and ultimately there is no job. So even with those figures, we still estimate that what we receive is less than 5% of all fraud. So I say MMF here. It's an old term we used to use, mass marketing fraud. So fraud on mass through email, internet, telephone. We're losing the term MMF. It's just fraud today, whether it's mass marketing fraud or any other type of fraud. But we're collecting all frauds at this point in time. But we get less than 5%. So this is based on a University of McMaster study in 2008 on identity theft and fraud that showed that 13% of victims of identity theft and fraud actually report to police, and under 1% actually report to the fraud center. So we know reporting rates vary from scam to scam. Some scams have more emotional or psychological impacts. People are ashamed, embarrassed. There's all sorts of stigmas attached for fraud. So they may not report it. So we know reporting rates vary from fraud to fraud. So we conservatively estimate that we receive 5% of what's actually there. So if you look at the 160 million in reported losses in 2020 and think about that as 5%, you can see we easily get into the billions of dollars. So some of the current fraud trends I'll touch on today: extortion scams, merchandise scams, cryptocurrency, romance scams, identity theft, and frauds are a very hot topic today. Actually, it's the category we saw the largest increase in. Bank investigator scams, investment scams, and service scams. So identity theft and fraud. So identity theft refers to the preparatory stages of identity fraud. They're not the same thing at the end of the day. Two different sections of the criminal code. But identity theft is a stage where they're stealing your information. And what we typically see today is phishing emails, right? So you get an email that looks like it's coming from a legitimate organization. It looks like it's coming from your bank is usually the most common type of phishing scams we see, where they're asking you to update your personal information. Click on this link and update your personal information. And it's an unsolicited email seeking personal information. At the same time, what we see with these phishing emails is, it's not just banks. It can be, other areas where you might have accounts. So one that we've seen or noticed an increase in over the pandemic period is, Amazon phishing emails or Netflix phishing emails, or sort of these online e-commerce platforms or streaming sites, phishing emails designed to get you to update your profiles for these accounts. And they're seeking your username and login credentials for these accounts ultimately, so they can maybe steal those services or gain more personal information about you. And they're also designed to get you to click on attachments. So it's not just clicking on links and providing information. In some cases, they might direct you to click on attachments. So in the case of Amazon, please see the attached receipt for your recent order. And you click on that attachment, that supposed receipt, and you're going to end up installing malware in your computer. So you got to be really careful if you're opening up emails from unsolicited emails from in some cases unknown senders. In many cases, it might look like it's coming from a credible organization, but if you scroll your mouse over the actual email address, scroll your mouse over the links that are in those emails, you'll see that it's likely not from the real source. Moving over to identity fraud, here we're talking about how they use your personal information. So the big thing we've seen over the pandemic period is the use of personal information to apply for CERB. So it was in the news about the CRA credential stuffing attack. So credential stuffing attack is where they've gathered your personal information, your usernames and passwords from other accounts, and they're using that information to try and access your existing accounts. So they'll hop onto the CRA website, they'll punch in the username and password on the CRA website, and if you've used the same password on multiple different accounts, they're going to get in, right? So they get in and they're able to get into to a number of accounts and apply for CERB in many cases in an unauthorized fashion, right? Changing the banking information so the direct deposit goes into an account controlled by the fraudster. So identity theft and fraud today is very prevalent. Like I said, it's almost doubled in reporting from 2019 to 2020. 9,000 reports in 2019, upwards of 16,000 reports in 2020 so far. So the big thing with identity theft and fraud, we want to remind people to build in a routine to help prevent identity fraud and help protect yourself. It's really not a matter of stopping it from happening. It's a matter of being ready for when it happens today. With the mass data breaches, the phishing campaigns, and the various ways that the criminals are collecting your personal and financial information, you want to start taking steps to review your bank accounts on a routine basis, make sure there's no unauthorized charges, review your credit card statements, make sure you're getting all your mail. Checking your credit profile once a year is a really key step to see if the fraudsters have opened up any financial accounts in your name. One of the main reasons identity theft happens is fraudsters want to identity fraud is for financial gain at the end of the day. So they're going to apply for credit cards in your name. They're going to try and get loans in your name, maybe even a mortgage. So checking your credit profiles at least once a year. You can see what accounts or what activities on your credit profile, and if there's anything that's unauthorized there, you can take steps to mitigate the fraud. So getting a hold of the credit bureaus again, putting fraud alerts on your accounts, and contacting institutions where you don't have these accounts, right? Another key piece, I touched a little bit on usernames and passwords. So another key piece here is using strong passwords, 8 characters long, letters, numbers, special characters, and using unique passwords across different accounts. So again, if I refer to that credential stuffing attack, that was about using usernames and passwords on various platforms to see if they worked, and in many cases it did. So it's because people are using the same passwords and usernames across multiple accounts. And then the last sort of piece is, making sure your antivirus software is up to date, your operating systems are up to date, protecting the devices you're on, and really taking steps to protect your personal information. So we talked a little bit about phishing, which is an unsolicited email soliciting personal and financial information. So what is spear phishing? Spear phishing is more of a targeted attack. It leverages existing relationships between a person receiving an email and a person sending it. So examples of spear phishing campaigns that we see are, the business email compromise or CEO fraud. So typically targeting businesses where you get an email that looks like it's coming from your boss, asking you to conduct an urgent wire transfer on their behalf. You send that money, and then you find out that it wasn't actually your boss that sent you that email. Another variation is a payroll spoof, where payroll departments and businesses are getting emails that look like they're coming from employees, asking them to update their direct deposit information to a fraud account, right? More recently, what we've seen is a shift to spear phishing campaigns, so emails, again, that looks like they're coming from a trusted source, could be a family member, a friend, a boss, asking for help in buying gift cards. So in the case of a family member, it's it's your nephew Jeff. I lost my wallet right before Christmas. George's birthday's coming up, and I'm just hoping you can help me out and send me a few gift cards so I can get him a birthday present, right? In the case of a boss sending an email, it might be, it's Jeff here. We're having a staff meeting next Monday, and I'd like to give out some gift cards as gifts of appreciation to some of our staff members. Can you go out and get me some gift cards and send me the numbers in the back of these gift cards, right? So again, it's leveraging that relationship between the sender and the receiver. Basically, what we want people to do with these cases is slow down any sort of email requests from friends, family members, bosses asking for urgent wire transfers, asking you to go out and buy gift cards. Confirm everything. Try to get a hold of them through a phone number you have. Talk to that person. In the case of businesses, it's really about building processes in place, limiting employees' authority to conduct transactions, and having processes in place for purchasing, right? So not everybody's going to go out and buy a gift card based on an email they got. So you have to confirm everything before you actually take a financial step. And really, with businesses and cybersecurity in general, it's about educating your employees about these types of scams and having plans in place for employees to be able to reach out to security departments, to key individuals in an organization that can help an employee with suspicious emails or requests that they might receive. Service scams, so another big category. The most common service scam we see is the tech support scam. So while it typically historically came through the telephone, where you get a call saying this is Microsoft calling, your computer's infected with malware, we need to log into your computer and fix your computer right away. And then ultimately, you give third-party access to your computer to the fraudsters. They show you some error reports, and then they tell you they're going to clean your computer, but there's going to be a fee for $300, and you're going to have to pay for this with your credit card. So that's the most typical service scam we see. The other area we see tech support is in pop-up. So you can be surfing the internet online, and you're going to get a pop-up, virus alert, call now, and it's going to present the toll-free number for you to call. And again, it's going to lead to that pitch where your computer's involved with sending out malware, sending out viruses. We need to clean it up, and you're going to have to pay a fee. So be on the lookout for the tech support scams. Another type of service scam that we get quite commonly is websites popping up offering government services, right? So website offering to help you with a pardon, a website offering to help you apply for a passport, to set up your driver's license test. In many cases, these are third-party services claiming that they might be able to do it faster, quicker, even immigration services I touched on in my opening slide there. So any sort of government service, third-party offer of saying they can conduct a government service that is free to access in most cases for a fee, to be on the lookout for those types of offers. And then the last piece with the service scams probably is the home renovation scams, the door-to-door sales, or sometimes a cold call for duct cleaning or hot water tanks or HVAC furnaces. So there's a number of different service scams that involve sort of home renovation angle to it. And here, in many cases, they're going to want to come in and inspect your furnace, tell you there's a problem that you have to replace it, and you're going to end up potentially replacing a furnace that you didn't have to replace. And then, so the recovery pitch, in many of these cases, what we see with service scams, specifically with the tech support, is a recovery pitch. And a recovery pitch happens with all frauds. So if you've been a victim of fraud or you've been the target of a fraud, you're liable to be to receive a follow-up call. Once you've been a victim once, they're going to target you again. And the follow-up call is going to be that we know you were a victim of a tech support scam. You sent money to this company overseas that claimed to fix your computer. We've recovered this money, but in order for you to get it back, you need to pay some transfer fees or insurance fees or deposit fees. And again, there's going to be a request for cash. Merchandise scams. So the old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So merchandise scams have just exploded over the pandemic period, from straight out counterfeit goods to non-delivery. Basically, fraudsters are creating websites. Early days of the pandemic, what we saw was many websites offering face masks, hand sanitizers, for that PPE type equipment. But also with the pandemic, what we saw is people were forced to do things at home that they never did. So you couldn't go out and get a haircut early on in the pandemic when the lockdowns were in place, or even today, in where I'm sitting, anyways. So what we saw was people hopping online to buy hair clippers. So there was many websites popping up offering hair clippers, and they never received anything at all. Hot tubs, blenders, generators, you name it, we see it. There's all sorts of different types of merchandise scams. The typical indication of a merchandise scam is the price of the goods. So, if I use a Canada Goose jacket as an example, these things retail from $800 to $1,000. So you might find a website offering Canada Goose jackets at $200 to $400, which is a gross discount, right? And it is really a key indicator of fraud and potential counterfeit. So really be on the lookout when you're shopping online. Really do your due diligence, read reviews, try to go to recognized or known retailers and sellers. And it really is about doing your due diligence, doing as much research as possible, understanding what the true market value of an item might be. The other thing to think about when shopping online or conducting commerce online is how you're going to pay for your goods. So if you're shopping online, we always recommend using a secure payment method, a method that offers some sort of fraud protection. So we know various internet payment service providers such as PayPal have built-in fraud protection policies, but you really want to know what kind of payment mechanism you're using, what their fraud policies, refund policies are, and pick the right one. Probably the best one is a credit card if you're shopping online. Credit card companies do have fraud protection policy. So if you don't receive what you order, you don't receive anything at all, or you receive counterfeit, you can call that number in the back of your credit card and dispute the charges and look to get a refund. So the bank investigator scam, this is one that more commonly targets seniors. It targets people with landlines most commonly. So you're getting a call early in the morning, claiming to be Visa or Mastercard or your bank, that there's unauthorized charges on your account. Do you have your card ready? Yes. What's the number on the back of your card? It's 495-8501. So we're going to hang up the phone here. I need you to call that number on the back of your card right away to take the next step to deal with this unauthorized charge. So you hang up the phone and you pick it up right away and you call that number. And the next thing you know, you believe you're talking to your bank, or in some cases, what we've seen is they get you to call your police number, the number for your local police, and they're going to tell you that these are unauthorized charges. We need to protect your account. We want you to transfer all your funds to this account, right? So they're getting you to send your money somewhere else, or we need your help to catch this bad guy. Can you send the money to this account to see if we can set up a sting to catch the scammer? So at the end of the day, what happened here is when you hung up your phone and picked it up right away, if it's a landline, again, it targets landline phones primarily, is there's a delayed disconnect, anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds. It varies from different phone providers. But it basically, when you hung up and picked it up again, you were still connected to the fraud call. That first initial call you received never got disconnected, and they've steered you down the road to hang up and pick it up right away, to plan that delayed disconnect, to make you believe that you're actually calling your bank and speaking to your bank, and that way you're more likely to carry out the instructions that the fraudsters are giving you. So again, it primarily targets landlines, often involves calls early in the morning, and often what we see is it's targeting senior victims. And again, no bank at the end of the day is going to ask you to transfer your money to keep it safe to another account. They're not going to ask you to send money to help with a sting operation. That just doesn't happen. These things just don't happen. So at the end of the day, again, it's that request for cash or request for transfer of money, that urgent situation that you really need to be paying attention for. So investment scams. So this is another area that we've seen climb up in 2020. Investment scams, while they're always in the top 5 for reported losses, they're not always in the top 10 for number of reports we get. Not everybody's investing. However, investment scams generally do lead to higher dollar losses. So it's basically any false, deceptive, misleading, or fraudulent investment opportunity offering higher than normal or true monetary returns. So it's sort of that invest now. We're offering 30%, 50% returns. I don't know if there's any investors in the audience, but returns of that volume aren't typical, and you certainly want to do your due diligence if you're hearing about these higher than normal type returns in an investment opportunity. A common investment scam we see today is in tied into Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, right? So initial coin offerings is like an initial public offering, an IPO. Except we call it a ICO, initial coin offering. And the idea here is that we want you to invest in the next big Bitcoin. JT's coin is going to be the next big Bitcoin out there. If you invest now, you're going to make millions of dollars, right? And the coin may not exist at all, or there's very little information to back it up. And the creation of this coin is just going to crumble, right? So again, it's investing is really about doing due diligence. You want to check that the dealer that you're dealing with or the investment broker you're dealing with is registered to sell or licensed to sell in the province. So each province has a securities commission, so in Ontario Securities Commission, British Columbia Securities Commission, where you can go to their websites, and there's links on different websites to check to see if a seller is indeed registered to sell investments. And again, the key here is the higher than normal returns. So be on the lookout for that. Good segue into the next slide on cryptocurrency scams. So when we talk about fraud, we often talk about fraudsters needing two tools. They need to be able to communicate with victims and receive victim money. When it comes to receiving victim money, what we've seen is an increase in demands from the fraudsters for victims to send money through cryptocurrencies, to go to a Bitcoin ATM and transact through this Bitcoin ATM. So one of the most common scams we see with cryptocurrencies is job scams. And here what they're doing is they're posting ads online on classified sites or job posting websites. Monster.com is an example. And or they're soliciting people that have posted their resumes on these websites, and they're offering them jobs as financial agents, clerical workers, administrative assistants, various types of job offers there. They're not going to be able to meet you in person or do an in-person interview because of the COVID pandemic, but they really like your resume and they want to hire you right now. So you're going to go through the process of filling out the application, providing your personal information again, and then they're going to give you your job duties. And your job duties is going to be to receive payments on behalf of company ABC, and then take that money and transfer it to head office using a Bitcoin ATM. So they've essentially made you a money mule, a middle person in the scam, right? So you could receive an e-transfer into your account. You're going to withdraw that money and go attend a Bitcoin ATM, and they're going to tell you where that ATM is, and they're going to give you a wallet number, a QR code to deposit that money to. So essentially, it's a financial agent job scam, and they're recruiting people to be money mules. The money you received is either coming from compromised accounts or other victims of fraud. So if you don't know the source of funds that are coming into your account and you're doing a job, you are participating potentially in money laundering activity. So you could potentially be arrested. You may not be charged, but certainly you could be arrested. And it's something. It's another key indicator. And again, it's that request to send the money on. Extortion scams. Here we're talking about the hot extortion scam right now is that Service Canada SIN number scam. I'm imagining many people in the audience have received that phone call saying this is Service Canada, your SIN number is implicated in fraud. We need you to do exactly what we're telling you, to do. Otherwise, you could be arrested, charged, fined, etc. Right? So here, what we're seeing is, in many cases, they're asking people to send money again through the Bitcoin ATMs, right? It could be that you owe back taxes, and if you don't pay right away, we're going to arrest, charge, and fine you. So go to the ATM machine and send money to this Bitcoin address. Or we see the request for them to go out and buy gift cards as well, Steam cards, Google Play cards, Apple iTunes cards. Again, no government agency, no legitimate institution is going to send you to a Bitcoin ATM to ask you to make a payment. Or they're not going to ask you to go out and buy gift cards at the end of the day. No government agency, again, no banks, no legitimate institutions are going to do this. And then the investment scams, initial coin offerings I just touched on. Romance scams. So another grossly underreported scam. You can imagine there's a huge social, psychological, emotional impact with romance scams. But essentially, what the romance scammers are using dating websites, social media platforms to create fake profiles to solicit people into potential relationships, right? They want to build up relationships with you. And this is really a scam of trust at the end of the day, right? So we've seen, fraudsters willing to carry on a relationship with someone for, 3, 4, 5, 6 months before they even think about asking for money. Um, they're always your perfect match. They're going to tell you whatever you need to hear. They're going to profess their love in a very quick way. But when it comes to meeting them, there's always an excuse why they can't meet you. They're traveling. I'm a business person traveling abroad. Um, and my bank account's been frozen. Can you help me out? And receive some money from me. They might even recruit you to be a money mule and send it on, right? So eventually it leads to these relationships, leads to requests for cash when you've never met the person. They might make you money mules. It could be a tragedy. Well, they've lost their wallet. They have a family member that's gotten ill from the COVID pandemic while they were traveling, and they're in the hospital, need to pay hospital fees. Again, they've got every excuse in the book to try and get you to send money. They're working on a big business deal. Uh, their funds are tied up right now to make the business deal go through. They need, a few more dollars to get the approvals done. Can you help them out, right? So again, if you're doing online dating, beware that there's fraudsters creating fake profiles. Beware that they're going to carry on a relationship, tell you exactly what you need to hear. And if you've never met somebody and they start asking you for money, that's certainly a really big red flag. And again, they're willing to take the time to carry on that relationship for you to get emotionally invested to build up that relationship before they ask you for anything. So when we talk about stigmas of fraud and underreporting, we've seen suicides in the case of romance scams where people were just emotionally devastated when they found out that the person they've lost their life savings to is a complete fraud. So they thought they were getting married and they were going to have this great life, and lo and behold, they've sent their life savings, they've lost their house, and this person doesn't exist. So it's really emotionally devastating. Fraud is just not a financial crime. There's social, psychological, and emotional impacts on victims as well. So how to protect yourself? So we talked about sort of the recognizing. I've gone through recognizing some of the different scams. Certainly visit our website to learn more about various frauds. We have an A to Z index there. We have scams by medium. If the call came in over the phone, if you received a text message. So there's different ways to browse the different scams. But so recognizing is really, starting to take notice that the fraudsters are out there. Again, on the internet, email, text messages, telephone, social media, running various scams. And once you get, if you receive an unsolicited offer, or you're involved in some sort of relationship that you suspect could be fraudulent, is to start to do your research and start to reject the fraud. So how to protect yourself, don't be afraid to say no. Slow down. Don't react to any urgent, coercive, extortive demands. Um, Call your family members and friends, confirm everything. Uh, Protect your personal information. Treat your personal information as a commodity. Your name, your identity, your date of birth, your usernames and passwords. This information is all worth money to the fraudsters because they can use it to carry out identity fraud and other crimes. So treat it as a commodity. Don't give out personal information to unsolicited requests or demands. Beware, again, the key indicator of fraud is that upfront request for money or that request for cash. So beware of upfront fees when you're buying services or applying for loans online. Any sort of that request for cash for upfront money is again a big red flag. Don't click on links or attachments in unsolicited emails, and then protect your computer. Again, your antivirus software, your operating system. Make sure they're up to date, and routinely maybe changing your passwords is another key piece here as well. So what happens if you've been a target of fraud is we want you to report, recognize, reject, report. Reporting fraud, fraud is a crime and it needs to be reported to local police. Local police need to know about the crimes happening in their community. At the same time, we'd like you to report it to the Community Fraud Center. The easiest way or best way to report oftentimes is to gather all that information pertaining to the fraud first. So I always recommend people create a chronological statement of events. When did the call come in? What number did it come from? Who did they say they were? What did they say? What did they ask for? Really document all the information pertaining to fraud. If you sent money, do you have copies of your receipt? If it involved email or text messaging, do you have copies of all the communications, the emails, the receipts? And really gather all the information and sort of make a chronological statement of event of everything that transpired. So that way it's easier to report. Fraud is changing so much, so fast today that, in many cases, even us at the fraud center, we can get reports where we're scratching our heads trying to figure out what kind of scam this is. Is it an extortion scam, tech support, service scam, merchandise scam? So if the information's detailed thoroughly, it helps us understand what the fraud is more easily, and it helps us classify it and helps us provide you with the right advice and steps to take. Reporting fraud also involves reporting to the place where you sent money, financial institutions, money service businesses, even on the side of Bitcoin ATM machines. There might be a phone number on the side of an ATM, Bitcoin ATM machine. So you want to report to where you sent the money or where the money was sent from so that, one, you might be able to get it back. Can a financial institution recall a wire transfer? Has the money been picked up through a money service business yet? Can they block or stop that transfer? In the case of Bitcoin and money service businesses, in most cases, it's gone as fast as it's sent. And there's often no or little or no recourse to get the money back, but it's certainly a worthwhile step. If you catch it within 72 hours, you might get lucky. But again, in many cases, what we know is that as fast as the money's sent, the fraudsters are withdrawing it and moving that money along. Reporting to the place where the fraud, to the service provider where the fraud took place. So, is it a social media website, dating website? Was it on eBay, a classified ad site such as Kijiji? If you report to where you found this fraud, the service providers can take steps to block those fraud accounts, those fraud profiles on Facebook or the dating website. Take down that fraudulent ad on Kijiji. Um, block that email if it was an email scam. You report to Google or MSN or the various email service, Yahoo or the other email service providers. So again, this is a key step to disrupting the fraud. It's a step that the anti-fraud center also takes. But again, the more steps that victims or people that are targets of fraud take to report it, to spread the word, to talk to family members or friends. Again, that hashtag Tell2 campaign from the UK. The more steps you take, the more impact we have at reducing fraud in Canada. And really, when I say this, it's one of the things when I first started working here was that let's make Canadians the most educated. Let's make Canada the most educated country when it comes to fraud. So, and we ask people to participate in that step to help other people, right? And then the last piece for reporting ties into the identity fraud. And I also mentioned it earlier, that's if you've been a victim of identity fraud, a key step is reporting to the credit bureaus, putting a fraud alert in your credit profiles, making sure there's no other unauthorized accounts or activity on your credit profiles. And the last piece here, where to report. So again, local police, if you're a victim of fraud, you're a victim of crime, you need to report to your local police. In most cases, local police are the police of jurisdiction to initiate an investigation. And that includes even if your money is sent overseas or sent to some other jurisdiction. You go to your local police, that's where you pay taxes, and they're there to collect, the victim evidence and information. And if they need assistance from police services across Canada or around the world, they're the ones that seek that assistance. Again, to the Anti-Fraud Center, the easiest way to report to us is through our fraud reporting system. As you saw, our toll-free lines are busy. We are a small team. But again, it's the easiest way to report, and the idea behind reporting to us is centralizing the information. And then, when it comes to fraud, it really is an integrated approach. So it's not just police or the Anti-Fraud Center that can help. So we've talked about investment scams. So the BC Securities Commission, the Ontario Securities Commission, the various security regulators across Canada might be another place to report if you're involved in an investment scam. There's also consumer protection agencies. So I'm just realizing in my slides here, I'm the last presentation I did was for an Ontario group, but the Ministry of Consumer and Government Services is a provincial body here that regulates Consumer Protection Act. I'm just trying to think of the name of the one in BC, but there is provincial consumer protection agencies across Canada. Um, so that's certainly something, and they do have Consumer Protection Act. So here's where we get into, say, the home renovation scams where I talked about the hot water heaters. There's 10-day cooling off periods tied to door-to-door sales. In some cases, door-to-door sales people need to be registered in the communities that they're in. So there's various different laws that can apply to different fraud situations or scam situations. So again, reporting it far and wide is often an important step to take. And I'll stop there. Thank you again for the opportunity to present. We have a few minutes here for some questions if there's any. And maybe the chat bar might be these. I'm happy if somebody just wants to ask them as well.
What was that phone number?
For the fraud center, so our toll-free number is 888-495-8501. No questions? Anybody have a fraudulent solicitation or anything that they can talk about or want to talk about or have questions about? Somebody that's experienced anything recently? Go ahead, Arnold.
Well, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I just have to say that, as a realtor, just that's sensitive to calls coming in all the time. I must get 3 to 5 calls a week of numbers that I block that come in. The Justice Department's on their way. And a client of mine got the same problem. She called me. She said she was on her way to buy gift cards at the Esso station because the police were coming to her house because her tax return was in arrears. And she does her own tax return. I mean, this is about 5 years ago, but it's just becoming so all the time.
Yeah.
I'm getting the CRA with the same recording. And the first hint, aside from the fact that it's so popular, was they were saying the Revenue Canada Agency. Well, it's not called that anymore.
Yeah,
they wouldn't call their name Revenue Canada Revenue. They've changed that, but it's just so common that I must have 100 phone numbers that are blocked in my phone. It's just wish there was a way to sort of to keep switching numbers.
Yeah, they do. They know we're working with, like I mentioned, our disruption program, working with the telephone service providers to get these phone numbers blocked. If you followed any of the news from the CRTC, the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Commission, that they've mandated or asked the telephone companies to come up with ways to improve caller ID trust, right? So that's something I forgot to mention actually in some of these calls is the fraudsters will manipulate the caller ID to make it look like it's a local caller, a local number appearing on your call display, or even a number you might know, your local police, or even a Government of Canada phone number. So it lends that, lends some credibility to the scammers. So you really can't trust your caller ID. So these are things the CRTC has mandated phone companies to work on and improve. Some sort of universal call blocking, some sort of trusted caller authentication process. So I know that they have taken steps. I think it was last December 2019. They rolled out. You can no longer receive calls from malformed numbers or non-conforming numbers. So if it's not a 10-digit number, like area code, prefix, and 4 digits. So they've implemented steps to block some of this stuff. And I know that they're doing a lot of good work. It's just some of the stuff takes time to implement because not all the service providers are on the same platforms or same computer systems, right? So it's finding something that works for everybody.
I just know that the list of frauds that you've got there, I've been attempted attacks on so many of them that a part of me, if I wanted another job and I wanted to moonlight undercover, I would be calling you. I'm sure everybody's got. I've left the phone on top of the TV during Bugs Bunny cartoons where the kids keep calling me, Dad, it's on the phone. I've dragged them out for hours. I've thought of like playing around with them, but it's just time consuming. Who's got it, right?
Mhm.
Anyway, thank you. It's very informative.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, thanks,
Jeff?
Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Oh, I guess somebody's trying to.
Oh,
Jeff,
Janice.
can you hear me?
Oh, Barbara. Okay.
Yeah. I just want to thank you very much for this course. It's an excellent, excellent course. And for Brooke, for putting it together. I've learned so much, confirmed so much, and thanks again.
No problem,
Thank you.
Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for putting on this, and Brooke for assisting it with this whole thing. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to share a couple experiences with what happened at our office. We've had 3 or 4 things happen, but years ago when we were still doing things by checks and not electronically through the RBC, we had somebody intercept one of our letters in the mail. He changed the number of the check and manipulated the check, went into the bank as Mr. Keller Williams, and he tried to cash that check. The following day, there was a $93,000 check that went out to Vancouver as a referral through the same account, and they tried to cash that too. So we intercepted both of them.
Mhm.
We got a call from the bank, and it's important to know that some banks will not cover you under these things. So it's very important to cover ourselves.
You have to catch them within, the bank only protects you within like something like 2 days. So every single morning, in that case, we had to close down our commission trust payroll account, open up another one, and clear one check at a time that we identified and verified, and the bank would release it one at a time until all the checks were cleared out of that account. And then we had to open up a new account and get new stamps
New
and
checks, yeah.
all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And what we do now to prevent that, instead of having envelopes with the open window that show that it's a check, we put them in closed envelopes so that you can't see it's a check. And we don't actually put that it's coming from a real estate account. We put Bill's name with the office address as our return address. And also, the other thing we do is,
I think we put a piece of paper in front of the check so they can't put it up to the light.
turn the check inside out so they can't hold it up to the light and see it.
Yeah. Another 2 things that you mentioned, Jeff, was the cards. We had one of my agents who was a 30-year vet. He was a cop for 30 years. He actually called me with one of these fraudulent things that went around saying, "Hey, boss," he says, "do you want me to send you $50 for that card that you want?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, it's a fraudulent thing going on." So I had 2 or 3 agents call me about the $50 gas card that I was abandoned somewhere and needed $50 for a gas card. And then Michelle had a call from a guy from a computer saying, "Please give me your password. You have a problem with your computer." So all 3 things that you mentioned today happened to us.
Mhm.
The other thing that's really important with the commission trust account is every morning we have one of our deal secretaries go on and cross-reference every single check that clears the bank every single morning, the trust account and the commission trust account, and they verify that nothing's been altered on that check, and then they tick it off and they file it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You touch on a couple different things here. So the counterfeit checks, or the theft of checks, which are then counterfeited. You see it with identity fraud where they try and open up accounts in somebody else's name and deposit those counterfeit checks. But we also see it with overpayment scams. So I didn't touch on that with the merchandise scams where, say you're selling something online and the person is going to offer to buy it, we'll send you a check, but I'm going to send you a check for more than your asking price because I'm going to need you to pay the shipper when he comes to pick up the goods. Or can you send the money on to the shipper, right? So they're going to send you a counterfeit check for more than the asking price, and it's often checks that are stolen in the mail that they'll use and reproduce, right? And the other thing you touched on was sort of the emergency scam gift card request, which is now a spear phishing attempt. So I'm not sure if you're aware in that case. In many cases, what we see is people's email accounts have been compromised, and then they're sending emails, or their social media profiles have been compromised. So the fraudsters have gained access to your email account or your social media profile, and then they're sending messages to your contacts. So the message looks like it's coming from you, a trusted contact, a trusted source. And again, it involves that request for the gift cards. But in those cases, if you're getting calls from friends saying, I got this email from you about these gift cards. You sort of got a question, was my email account or my social media account been compromised, and take steps to change your usernames and passwords.
Right. And one last thing, sorry to take up so much time. I was going to ask Brooke, I know that you guys are implementing some measures for the new year for all these scams that come through our email account. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so I did send out an email. It didn't have a lot of information. We'll be coming out with kind of a more broad explanation soon. But we basically added an external spam filter to our email. It's called Spam Titan. It gives us a lot more control because our email's spam filter is for everyone across that email platform, not just Sutton. So it made it very hard for us to block certain things because other people may need something like that open. So with Spam Titan, we're able to actually block everything that we want to block. We can add in special filters. I've been going through it pretty much every day since we started testing it, just to see what's going on. And it's very easy for me to do. So as soon as you send me something, I can go in and block them, and I can actually mark all the ones that haven't been opened yet as spam to prevent other people from even seeing what ended up in their inbox. So yeah, definitely send me a message. It's a lot quicker, a lot easier than our last system.
Excellent.
Good.
And Janice, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if the passwords that Google suggests are safe to use.
I've never used I'm not familiar with the feature you're talking about. But we always
the Google keychain, it saves your passwords if you have it set up to save.
Okay, so it's setting it up for you automatically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I imagine, I'd like to think that anything Google's doing, they're pretty at the front of stuff when it comes to cybersecurity and security with their accounts. But I think that's probably safe. The other thing you can do with any sort of online account or bank account or email account is many of them today offer multi-factor authentication. I forgot to mention that earlier as well. So it's a process where you're logging into your account. Say you're logging into your bank, you punch in your username and your password, and then you're going to get a text message or an email from your bank saying, here's your security code. You need to be able to punch in that security code to be able to proceed with your login, right? So it's an added layer of security to help prevent unauthorized access to your accounts. And also a good step to take, right? So really, security is about, the term we hear a lot is cyber hygiene. Doing your due diligence, checking your accounts, unauthorized charges, checking your credit profiles, setting up multi-factor authentication, routinely, using strong usernames and passwords across different accounts, routinely changing your passwords. So it's all a layered approach and stuff that we really need to make part of our routine lives today.
Thank you.
I got another couple for you if you want. I don't think you. Are you good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good for about 5 more minutes here. So
this, I call it a business practices scam. I almost sent a draft legislation to the minister on it, and this was with Equifax, where if you can get a subscription online, make sure you can cancel the subscription online. They don't always allow you to cancel. Then you call a 1-800 number. You'll be on the phone for 3 hours. And it's not just being on the phone for 3 hours. They make you do something to continue canceling, to continue to be on this phone call. Press this number. So you can't even passively. So from an operational standpoint, it's horrible. And if there's no way to cancel a subscription to a company online, after you've done your research, don't bother. Second one is if it's prescription oriented, and they give you a free sample for 30 days. But you have to, or for 40 days, but you have to cancel it before the 40 days. So you're not even thinking, oh, I'm getting to my 40, but you don't, then you're on auto renewal.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't check your visa statement regularly. You don't even know, so it's just, the whole idea is to get you on a temptation thing where you can't cancel.
Yeah. So we see a lot of subscription traps or continuity schemes, as we call them. And a lot of times they look like they might it might be a survey, say from Costco, a survey from Rogers, or a recognized company. You complete this survey, and then you're offered a free trial product after completing the survey. You just have to pay for shipping, and that's how they're getting your credit card details. And a lot of times what we see is it's in the terms of service, in the fine print, that by signing up for the service, you're agreeing to purchase XYZ for 1 year, 2 years, or whatever it is. In some cases, those terms of service don't even appear. We've even seen these scams set up so that the
Right.
first time you go to their website, there is no terms of service. You provide your credit card number. The next time you go, the terms of service appears on their website. So when you go to dispute those charges again with your credit card company, they're going to say you didn't read the fine print, it was there, and you're going to say, well, there was no fine print, you know. So it's certainly one we've had a big dialogue with the credit card companies on. I know, I believe it was MasterCard made some changes to some of their policies around continuity schemes and what these people can do. But yeah, it's another
We're the head office,
prevalent scam.
right? Where the head office of the company is too, because they'll be in Cyprus somewhere, and good luck, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much. It's always a good refresher.
All right.
Any final questions? No. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jeff. I think you gave us all a little something to think about when it comes to our own protection against scammers. And thank you everyone for joining us and taking an hour out of your day to learn about how to protect yourself.
Thanks again for setting it up, Brooke. And if anybody has follow-up questions, by all means, send them to Brooke. Feel free to send them my way, and we'll do our best to respond. Thanks again.